Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who wants to have his affair and his house too. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we are not. We are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. And we are very often wrong in our opinions. So please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some opinions and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. We're not
All
wrong
right.
in this situation.
Yeah. I was like, I don't think we're
our
ever
opinions
wrong.
I just meant like we're flawed humans with opinions that
Absolutely.
are inherently challenged
Absolutely.
by other people's lived experiences.
We have been wrong many times. I will tell you that.
There we go. I will never forget that it is okay to tell your therapist that you have a crush on them.
I know, absolutely. Every therapist that listens
were
to us
like,
came
"No,
out of the
please."
woodwork.
Somebody wrote us and they were like, I have a huge crush on my therapist. Should I tell them? And Sam and I were like, the mortified English majors in us were like, oh my God, no, it's so uncomfortable.
It's
Don't
so
tell them.
embarrassing.
It'll make it whatever. And then every single therapist who's ever listened to us and their cousins were like, actually,
You
it's
should definitely
totally
tell them.
healthy.
Yeah.
I
It's
still
actually
would
important
never.
because
I
it's a
still
common
would
thing
never.
that happens. It's called projection, and
Oh my
the
God,
therapist
yeah.
is equipped to help you work through it. And we were like,
Yeah.
oh, great, cool.
It's so funny that I was like, I would never tell a therapist that I have feelings for them. However, I did want to bring my first therapist coffee, like we were friends. And she was like, you
get
don't
it.
have to do that, Sierra.
You're like, yes, I do. Because I
else
have
would
to know
you
you
like
like
me?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
That is very
Yeah,
true.
right.
I went to my therapist's office this week and I had biked there. So I was like trying to cool down outside and was like, mopping up some of the sweat. And then my therapist got out of his car and started walking towards the building. And I was
were
like,
like, oh my God.
I don't know what to do. I
Do
was
we
like, I
walk?
don't,
Do we
supposed-
next? Are we?
Yeah,
Do we walk next to each other?
do we walk in together? What do we do here? And it was really uncomfortable, but we figured it out.
That is funny.
Yeah. And then
All right, I'm ready.
it was fine. Okay. So
See
this
what
letter,
I'm talking about? Like, we are inherently flawed is what I was trying to say with this whole introduction.
absolutely. We are just as awkward as all of you, just so you know.
Yeah.
All right. So this letter comes from Ethelred the Unready, whose pronouns are he, him, who's writing from Helpless in Helsinki. Dear Sam and Sierra, I've been enjoying your podcast for some time now. Keep up the good work. In my current situation, it's refreshing to hear your perspective and lightheartedness despite the solemnity of the topics you handle. Comparing your perspectives with the people close to me, you are as non-judgmental as possible. Just last month, I broke up with my best friend as I realized he could not offer me the support I needed. When I discuss hard subjects with my wife, we end up triggering each other quickly. Now for some background. I'm an older white male who's been married for a long time. While I have a strong relationship with my wife, I have had several affairs along the way. I am currently involved with a wonderful woman, let's call her Angie, who divorced me at the beginning of our relationship and is now single. The divorce was initiated by her husband and was not because of me, but I think I helped soothe the pain of her transition. In any case, she is wonderful, and we have shared countless intense and passionate moments over the last 2 years. I have never been able to share my emotions nor experience the intimacy that I have with her. I come from a family where such things are considered either weakness or non-existent, so I have had little practice. From the beginning, Angie was clear that she does not want to remain a secret forever. She also expects an exclusive relationship in the future, though living together and visiting her family is not that important to her. I, on the other hand, have emigrated to Europe and have no family to visit everyone except my mother has passed, so the only family I have is my wife and daughter. Angie is now asking me, if not to divorce my wife, to at least legally separate from her. Angie is single and wants an equal partner to share her life with, not a married man to meet with discreetly. With my wife, I have broached the subject of opening our relationship several times, but have received the clear message that I will need to pack my bags. I have built my new life here from scratch. While I know intellectually that a house is a material object, the emotional connections in the village where I live and the house which I have built and financed, run deep. Either I leave my house and my wife and risk estranging my adult daughter to start a new life and relationship, or I don't and risk losing the woman who best understands me emotionally. Angie asks me why I don't leave my wife and insinuates that an affair rarely turns out well for the single woman, as her family and friends constantly remind her. I, on the other hand, feel like I have offered all that I could over the past 2 years, and she finds me wanting. My relationship with my wife is a strong partnership. We have common interests, a history together, and a lasting love. I feel resentful that Angie is asking me to give that up to be with her. In the back of my mind, I hear the adage, a man who leaves his wife for his mistress loses a mistress. With my checkered past, I have also been honest with Angie and said that monogamy is not my strong suit. In the future, I would prefer non-exclusive relationships where all partners are informed and let the chips fall where they may. Angie says that we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, although she has clearly said that she wants a monogamous relationship. For all those reasons, leaving my life, giving up my house, potentially estranging my daughter, and turning my back on what I have built for a relationship when I already feel my shortcomings and which will strain my non-monogamous streak does not seem a particularly attractive option. And still, we both feel that this relationship is worth pursuing in whatever form. We have also taken your advice to just break up twice, but we are both struggling with it. Nevertheless, our future together is less clear than ever, and we are both stuck. Help?
All right, my darling, thank you so much for writing and for trusting us with this letter. You are in quite a pickle, as we say. And I appreciate your forthcomingness in this letter. That the and still really stuck with me. I know those moments in which you feel like the answer should be obvious. It's laying there right on the table, glaring at you. And still, there are other things. There are other sparkly, wonderful things that you feel like are worth pursuing. And you just can't seem to make a decision that draws a firm line. So I definitely relate to that and have empathy for that. And also, to outsiders looking into this position, I think that we can speak to you a little bit more bluntly than, say, some of your emotions or, Angie and your desires might be, the picture that your desires might be painting is a little bit muddier than what we're seeing over here, right? Like what we see is a great partner in Angie who is saying that she wants you to be something that you don't and cannot be, right? Like she says she wants a monogamous partner. You're telling her you can't be that. And still, you're both pretending that that fact is not true. And that's hard. Don't get me wrong. I have empathy for that. I know why people stay in these positions for a long time. But hopefully Sam and I can give you some perspective to at least feel firm in whatever decision you make, at least feel like there are no more and stills, or that the boundaries of those and stills, right? We're going to get into all of that and more, but first we're going to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Yeah, I think what Sierra said at the beginning of this is actually really interesting as we kind of think about a bunch of different aspects of your letter. And this idea of, you and Angie are both, in this position where you're pretending that this like big, giant sort of stick in the wheel of your relationship doesn't exist, right? Like this, your preference for non-monogamy is like, oh, well, just pretend like that's not there and the wheels will keep turning, right? But the wheels are stopping because there's a stick in there, which is that you have this sort of preference or identity around not wanting to be monogamous, right? And I say that that's true of your relationship with Angie. And I also want to point out that that is 100% true of your relationship with your wife as well, right? And like, I'm really trying not to judge because, Sierra and I both have been people who have gone outside of the bounds of our relationships with people in the past, right? Like Sierra and I have both been cheaters on previous relationships.
There's
right?
no
like
judgment. There's just observations. And
yeah,
I think that's why our show is valuable, is because we are at a different vantage point right now.
Absolutely. Yep. And we're just like, I'm naming that this is true, which is that, you talk about how you have a strong relationship, a strong partnership with your wife. And I'm sure that's true in some ways, and that you have these common shared interests. You've built a life together over the course of your life. Absolutely. You have your house, you have an adult daughter, right? Like, I'm sure that there are years and years of the two of you as people coming together to build a life. And I think that that is absolutely true. I just also want to name that the idea that you have a strong partnership is also built on pretending that that stick doesn't exist in the wheel, right? Like, the relationship that you have isn't as strong as you might think it is because there's this constant sort of deception that's been happening over the course of this relationship because of the affairs that you've had. And I want to just say to you that the way that you are engaging in this non-monogamy is not ethical, right? Because your wife doesn't know about it. And Sierra and I are all for creating relationships that work well for us. We're all for developing relationships that maybe don't fit inside the predictable rules of heterosexual monogamy with marriage and a house and kids, right? We are all for that. And we are also all for doing that in a way that is not deceptive, that doesn't put people at emotional or physical risk to their health and their own understanding of their relationship. And you and your wife deserve to be in a relationship where you are honest about the way that you are engaging in that relationship with her. She deserves better than you lying to her about your relationships with other people. And you deserve better than having to lie in order to maintain
and to be
this
forced
relationship
into something that you don't want. If you're a not monogamous person, I want to offer the idea that there is a world in which you can be transparent about your desire to be in non-monogamous relationships, and you can still pursue people who have monogamous tendencies. I think that there's this idea that in polyamorous or open or non-monogamous relationships that everybody is going everywhere. That, if just because one partner is non-monogamous, the other partners are too, but that's not necessarily true, and that's not a guarantee. Some partners prefer monogamy, right? But don't mind if their partner pursues other relationships. I know that that's really hard to believe, and it's very vulnerable to pursue because you have to be really honest about those desires, and you have to be not just honest about those desires and that pattern, but honest about what could potentially happen in the future. Like, I hear you vaguely nodding towards Angie when she says, well, I want you to be monogamous eventually. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, yeah, we'll deal with that when we deal with that, which means we won't deal with that because you don't want to do that, right? I said earlier, like, we don't have judgment at all, but we want you to be able to exist in these relationships in what is a mutually beneficial and harmless way, right? I think what you want is valid. It's that, unfortunately, in our very almost forced monogamous world, we aren't given many representations of non-monogamy that could look like the life that you want, right? The home, the family, and the other partners with, who are only partner to you or whatever. That I'm not saying that Angie and your wife would be up for that. It sounds like they wouldn't because they've explicitly said to you they're not, right? But what Sam is saying, on the nose is that you have a strong partnership with your wife because she doesn't know who you truly are. And that is painful. That is hard to swallow. That is a truth that I have lived in the past. But it didn't... You know what? If it didn't feel good to realize how much I was manipulating people that I deeply loved and respected in order to maintain things the way that I wanted them to be, not just what would be mutually beneficial across the board.
The reason why I think I'm speaking so explicitly to you about this is because I wish that I had been able to tell myself this when I was behaving badly to the partners that I had, right? Like, I wish that I had been able to say to myself, this is what you're doing. That we did that interview with Virgie Tovar a long time ago where the thing was radical honesty about what we're doing. And every day you're waking up and lying to a person that you say is one of your supportive, beautiful partners, right? Like you're telling your wife like that nothing is happening when in actuality it is. And I want to name that your wife told you that she doesn't want an open relationship, and that if you wanted to open the relationship, that the relationship would be over. And when you heard that, even though your relationship was already open on your end, instead of saying, oh, then I should pack my bags because I've already done this, you said, okay, I'm just going to continue to not talk about it, and that will solve the problem, right? It didn't solve the problem. The problem is still there. And I'm going to tell you that if your wife and your adult daughter find out about Angie without you telling them, they're probably going to be really upset, right? Like they're probably, I know that you're afraid that if you tell them and that you decide that you want to end this partnership, that you're going to estrange your daughter and you're going to lose all of this stuff. And I want to say that like you're already behaving in a way that puts those things at risk. Right? You're already behaving in a way that says that you're not valuing that partnership and that relationship, because if you were, you would be respecting the bounds of that relationship. And I know that this is hard because you have deep feelings for Angie, and I know that you have deep feelings for your wife. But what I'm trying to invite...
And we know that that's possible. Mm-hmm.
It is possible. Absolutely. We can be in love with multiple people at the same time. And we're also adults who are capable of making decisions that are in alignment with what we've agreed to, even though that might make us uncomfortable, or even though that might mean that we don't get everything that we want. And so what I think I'm inviting you into, and I think Sierra is as well, is to practice some radical honesty with yourself about A, what you want, B, the harm that you're causing to the people around you, including your wife, including Angie, including your daughter, and to ask yourself if that's actually how you want to be living your life, right? Do you want to be the person that hides things so that other people don't know, so they're not hurt in the moment, but maybe hurt over the long term, right? Are you the type of person that wants to have what you want at the expense of other people's feelings or other people's understandings of who you are and what their relationship is, right? Would you rather lie to get both things that you want than be somebody who sits in the discomfort of recognizing that sometimes pursuing something that we want means that we have to leave behind something that's no longer working for us, right? And that's the invitation we're bringing into you, right? We're not trying to judge you and say, I can't believe that you've done this. How terrible are you? Because we don't think that you are a terrible person, right? We know that this is probably way more complicated than the letter that you wrote us. But we do want you to, and honestly expect you to, begin to live in actual alignment with honesty, with the truth of what you want, and with more respect to these women in your life who are looking to you for kindness and support and honesty and aren't getting it from you, right?
Yeah, and let me speak to Angie for a little bit, because I think that me, a recovering selfish person who used to be a cheater, I used to do a lot of invisible mental gymnastics to justify keeping people in my lives. And so let me do what I wish I had done for other people, for you and Angie. Angie is a whole, deserving person who has a diverse and unique life. And Angie is obviously, you two are connected. You are intimate. You are vulnerable with one another. She sees you for who you are, so you say, and she's a great partner. Angie also wants something from you that you are unable to give her. And Angie is, I started this little speech by saying she's a whole person, because I want you to take a moment and picture Angie outside of the role that she's playing in your life. Angie has a life, which I know you know, but like, Angie deserves a partner who can contribute to her life in a fuller, more honest, more sustainable way than how you are contributing right now. And that partner could be you. It could be you. If you could decide to see her, to leave your wife, to be a full partner, and to meet her at whatever monogamy, agreement that you've reached. I think for a long time, I looked at people as players in my life. Like, that sounds so narcissistic, but maybe it was because I was young and selfish and my brain was underdeveloped. Like, you know, I looked at how I was benefiting them, you know, and how our partnership was so special and our connection was special. And it would be a shame to cut that out of both of our lives. But what space are you taking up in Angie's life that she could fill with somebody who could actually meet her where she wants to be met? And I mean an in public, full-time, monogamous partner, a life partner, right? Isn't that what Angie deserves? The person that you wrote to us that you love and respect, that you've been seeing for, 2 years? Angie, I'm guessing, is a grown adult, right? Like, who has her own life, but also our time is finite here, right? And I'm not saying you're wasting Angie's time. I am saying you are taking up space in her life in a way that feels unsustainable to me the way that it is, which means you are either going to get together in a full, real way, or you need to break up, right? Like, those are like, you can do this forever. You could do this forever with Angie and your wife. But that, when we use the word harm, we're using that really intentionally, because it might feel good for the 2, 4, 6, 10 years that she is your mistress, right? But then you have taken 10 years of this woman's life, promising something that you will never have delivered upon. And that is actual human emotional harm. And that's what we're trying to prevent here, right? We're not judging you for getting into the situation. We're not judging Angie. We're not judging your wife. No judgment here. We're just trying to speak from the vantage point of our fucking microphones, that we see that this is, Angie, if you keep going on the way that you are with Angie, Angie's going to go to therapy because of you. Angie's going to feel like she's wasted time of her precious, impermanent life waiting for you to become something that, from what you have admitted to 2 strangers, you will never be. Right? Angie wants you to be a full-time monogamous partner, period. And you have said to 2 strangers, not your loved ones, you said to 2 strangers, I can't promise that. And so then you have to do the hard adult thing and say, even though this presence feels good in my life, even though I love having access to this person, if I look deep down underneath those layers of pleasure, I'm causing harm. Or I could cause harm in the future.
And like Sierra and I said, we don't think that you're a terrible person, right? But we are concerned about some of the ways that you are behaving, right? Like some of the actions that you're taking. And what we want you to be able to do is to live in closer alignment with what we know to be true about you, which is that you are a good and caring person, and that the people around you deserve access to that goodness and care in ways that you're denying them in this moment. And you deserve better than that, and they deserve better than that.
We know this is hard, we hope that we have wrapped this tough love in enough empathy and compassion that you feel it from us, because we have it. We really do. We also have empathy and compassion for your wife and for your daughter and for Angie. And we want people to be able to, use this one wild and precious life in a way that is in alignment with their values, in alignment with causing the least amount of harm in the world. And I guess I'll just add one more thing in closing. Like, if you want Angie, then you can rebuild a house, right? If you want your wife, then you can rectify the actions in your relationship that is harming your marriage, right? You can make the changes that then will align with the values and morals that you want to have. Any change is possible. If you want to be a non-monogamous person who is openly non-monogamous, seeking out monogamous partners, that's a possibility too. How it's going now, like Sam said, I think Sam was really on point and honestly haunting when they pointed out that if your wife and daughter find out that this is happening on their own terms, it's going to be so much worse if you actually started to live within your own values and authenticity and put action behind these desires. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to start being honest, friend. You got to start being honest with your wife. You got to start being honest with Angie, and you have to start being honest with yourself, because this dishonesty that you're currently living in is harming a bunch of people around you. And you know,
even
we
if
don't
it
think
doesn't
that that's
feel
a good
like
thing.
it, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's our advice, is to start telling the truth about you and about what you've been doing and about what you want from the relationships that you're currently in.
Yeah. All right, my darling. We love you. We believe in you. We know that you can make this change, one choice, one conversation at a time. And we're really grateful that you trusted us with this question.
Absolutely. Thank you for writing. We hope this helps. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get access to those monthly office hours, which is when Sierra and I hop on Zoom and chat with anyone who wants to join us. We answer questions, we tell stories, we listen to all of your great advice that you're giving each other, which is like the secret, amazing part of the office hours. If you're interested in joining our office hours, our next ones are going to be on October 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central. So please join us for that. You can go to patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit all of your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise, and we're doing a big major sale, so check out our online store for any of your early holiday shoppings. Everything is like 50% off or more, so go check that out right now.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more broken-hearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, telling the truth to others can often feel so incredibly scary because it risks the access that we have to them. But to be a truly compassionate, present, and respectful partner of the world, we have to allow people to make their own decisions over our availability in their lives based on what we can actually give them. It's crunchy until it's smooth. It'll make you sleep better at night. Honesty is actually the best policy. And if all else fails,
just break up.